Hey guys, welcome back to Everyday EV. My name is Brandon, the host of this channel, and for today's video, I have some exciting things to talk about. For today's video, I'm finally going to discuss my 1-year ownership review of my 2019 Chevy Bolt EV. And now, there is a few things that I absolutely love about this vehicle, and there's a few things that I absolutely can't stand about the vehicle. So for today's video, it's going to be truthful, opinionated, and honest, which the majority of my videos are. But since I've driven this vehicle a little bit more than 16,000 miles, I wanted to give you guys a honest discussion of how I feel about this vehicle. Now, at the end of this video, I'm going to give the Chevy Bolt EV an everyday EV rating. And basically, this is a new rating structure that I'm going to add to my videos when it comes to reviews and ownership experience. Basically, what this rating is that I'm going to discuss whether or not I feel like the Chevy Bolt EV makes a good everyday electric vehicle for the majority of drivers out there. So if you're interested in electric vehicles, especially the Chevy Bolt, definitely stay tuned for that. Let's get started. So before I begin, I just want to let you guys know that throughout this video, I'm going to be adding cards that reference other videos that are currently on my channel. And now these videos captured memories, experiences throughout the year of what it was like to own the Bolt EV. That includes long distance traveling, fast charging, and everyday education. So I'm going to add those throughout this video, so definitely keep an eye out for those. So to start, I wanted to give you guys an honest background of how I actually ended up buying this vehicle. For years now, I've been very interested in the Chevy Bolt EV. I had a Chevy Volt 2012 back in 2016 to about 2017, and sadly ours were ended. And this is my first fully electric vehicle. If you guys watch my videos, I think you guys know that by now. But if you're new to my channel, I just wanted to let you guys know that. I've been interested in electric vehicles for years now. So when GM first announced that they were going to be coming out with an all-electric vehicle, and they unveiled the concept back in 2015, and then the production model was unveiled in 2016, I got super excited about the vehicle. I love hatchbacks, and I love the designs of the Chevy products at the time, so for me that was super exciting. And the fact that it was all electric was even more exciting. But the one thing that really intrigued me most is that the vehicle was going to start at around $35,000 or sub $40,000 and have a estimated EPA range of over 200 miles. And now, honestly, at the time, that was exciting. I was working for Tesla, so I was experiencing the luxury side of electric vehicles. And at the time, I was a college student and I couldn't afford anything that Tesla had to offer at the time. So I kind of had my sights on the Chevy Bolt EV when it first was announced, and I was super excited about it. So fast forward a few years, I graduated college, and I was fortunate enough to be able to purchase this vehicle in September of 2019. So if you may be wondering why I didn't get into a Model 3 or a vehicle in the same price point as the Bolt, the reason is that I was leasing a 2017 Volkswagen Golf, and I had an extensive amount of negative equity on that vehicle. And so the dealership that I bought this vehicle, they actually had a max total, including the federal tax credit, of around $12,000 off. So that really took care of all my negative equity, and I kind of just started fresh. So that's really the main reason why I decided to get a Bolt EV over, say, something like a Model 3. So for those who are new to my channel, I just want to give you guys a quick overview of which Chevy Bolt EV I'm currently driving. This is a 2019 Chevy Bolt EV. It's the LT trim with both optional packages. And now what's included in those optional packages are things like heated seats, heated steering wheel, and then with the safety package, you get the emergency braking, lane keep assist, blind spot warning, as well as cross traffic alert. The only downside is that the vehicle does not come even as an option with adaptive cruise control. And for me, that's going to be the first con of this video, because I think for how much this vehicle costs, it should definitely come with something like adaptive cruise control. And now there are rumors that the new Chevy Bolts are going to be coming out with GM's Super Cruise, which is like kind of their semi-autonomous cruise control, as well as like some driving features, but this Bolt sadly does not have anything like that. And now for the exterior paint color, this is what they call Nightfall Gray Metallic. It's this beautiful dark gray metallic paint, and honestly this is going to be the first Pro. GM does a wonderful job with their metallic paint colors, and honestly in the sun, even though it's not sunny here at all right now here in Ohio, it sparkles. It's absolutely beautiful, and honestly there's like a green hue to the paint, and that's my favorite thing about the exterior. It's just how beautiful and sparkly the paint color is of this Bolt. So let's talk about overall dimension and exterior design of the Bolt and some pros in that aspect. So for me, I love hatchbacks. I think hatchbacks are incredibly practical. They're small, they're nimble, they're easy to drive, and that's honestly one reason why I was attracted to the Bolt EV from the beginning, is that it's a small hatchback. For me, I'm not really into huge vehicles, and I'm about 6'1", which is kind of funny that I don't necessarily like bigger vehicles. I just like a small, easy to drive car. So that's going to be my first pro with the Bolt EV, is that it's definitely practical for the size. Another thing that I like about the exterior of the Bolt is that it's not overly futuristic. I definitely think GM and Chevy did a good job with the amount of chrome that they added to this vehicle. The wheels are 17 inches, and I definitely think it fits everything with the wheel wells and just the overall look of the vehicle. Now, the only thing that I really wish GM did is that they would have designed it to signify that it was an electric vehicle, besides some badging you can see on the side of the car as well as the back and the charge port. I think if it was more signified that this was an electric vehicle, I definitely think people would recognize it more. And I think that that's one con, and I really hope with the next Bolt EV, they do something with that. And now this comes to the first con of the exterior, and it's going to be the headlights. So these headlights, as I mentioned in a previous video, which was my top 5 things that I liked and disliked about the Bolt EV, definitely click that card if you want to watch more of that. These are HID bulbs. And now the reason I don't like these is that they are not bright at all. In fact, I actually really wish Chevy and GM would have went with an LED bulb or some type of LED design, because it really would have helped illuminate the road ahead of you. There's actually been some times where I've been driving in the rain and I can't see anything because these bulbs are so dim. In fact, they're so dim that it's not even like they're on half the time, even though they are. So for me, that's one con. I really hope that Chevy improves on that and they create better and brighter headlight. Well, while we're on the topic of the headlights, this is actually one of the service trips of many that I've had to go through in terms of maintaining and repairing this vehicle. So I don't necessarily know if Chevy designed this vehicle with just cheap plastic in terms of the headlight casing, but my car, keep in mind, less than 15,000 miles, already had to have the headlights, both of them, replaced because they were already bleaching from sunlight. And now that typically happens with older vehicles, not a brand new vehicle that's only a year old. So for me, honestly, that's a little disappointing, knowing that the quality of the materials that they put into this car is not there. And then the other thing, as you can see from the photos I'm about to post, the dealership did not put together the bumper correctly when they fixed the headlight. In fact, they actually put it on crooked and they said that it was safe to drive. Definitely not a fan of that. Now, as I mentioned before, one of my favorite things about the Bolt EV is that it is a practical hatchback. And that's definitely one aspect that I love about the car. However, one thing that I think is a pro is the taillights. Both of the taillights are full LED, and in fact, my particular Bolt had a software update where the third brake light flashes 3 or 4 times whenever I hit the brake or whenever I'm regenning, to make sure to alert the driver behind me that I'm stopping. And now, the one thing that I want to get into is just the practicality of the hatchback. So since this is an everyday EV video, I didn't want to clear anything out because I wanted to show you guys that I've been using this vehicle as an everyday driver. So the back of the vehicle is extremely practical. Both of the seats fold down flat. We've been able to put full-size luggage for my parents' trip, which was a 3-week trip, all the way stacked to the roof and still had enough room for them to sit in the back of the car while we drove them to the airport. So the practicality aspect of the hatchback is pretty unbelievable. One con though, and this is one thing that like I wasn't aware of when I bought the vehicle, is that the LT trim actually doesn't come with a parcel shelf to make this a flat loading floor. So there is a relatively deep dip. You can see from my backpack that it drops pretty far. So if you are looking for a flat loading floor, make sure that you talk with your dealership or you buy the Premier trim, because the LTs don't come with that standard, which is something I definitely think they should. The one thing is, like I mentioned, that parcel shelf, with it not coming standard with the LT, is that there is a relatively big drop from the back seats to the bottom floor of the trunk. The seats do fold, however, now this is going to be kind of like a first world problem. There's this privacy shield right here that, let me just tell you, this is really flimsy. I kind of wish that it was a little bit sturdier. You can take this out if you want to reach the back seat to fold them. You can kind of get all awkward and put your arm, or you can walk around, open the back door, and drop this. Now, with that seat dropped, you can see that there is that large shelf, or that, like, I call it the cliff, because it doesn't fold flat without that parcel shelf. So you can still drop heavier or taller items in the back of the trunk. However, you're never going to be able to lay anything flat unless you have that parcel shelf. But the practicality behind folding the seats is honestly incredible. I actually put a 2x6 board laying flat here all the way to the front of the car. So even though the vehicle is small on the outside in terms of dimension, there's actually a lot of room on the inside for luggage, storage, and just a lot of other things. So before I dive into driving aspects and characteristics that I've come to love about the Bolt EV, I want to talk about charging. My charging situation has been great because I have a level 2 charger at home that sits on the side of my house. And now that has worked seamlessly. It is a Siemens VersaCharge 2, I believe, that we got from Costco a year ago. It sits outside 24/7, rain, snow, sun, every aspect of weather, and it has held up great. So I definitely recommend that level 2 charging station at home. So when I'm not at home and I've done these long distance road trips, for example, I've driven thousands of miles over the summer, which I've been fortunate to do in today's current situation, which if you guys are interested in my travel blogs, check out the cards in this channel. I'm going to be posting these throughout. I managed to get my Bolt from Cleveland, Ohio to Summit Point, West Virginia, and then from Cleveland, Ohio to Bowling Green, Kentucky, and back with both trips, relying heavily on the Electrify America charging network. And now Electrify America has been great, their customer service has been great. However, their charging stations have been kind of hit or miss. I will say about 90% of the time they work for me after 1 or 2 attempts to get them to connect. And now that's kind of a downside with the Bolt. So GM did not reinforce the charge port for 2017 through 2019 Bolt EVs. And the cables on the Electrify America charging stations are extremely heavy. So when you plug in the charge port, or when you plug in the charger to your car, it weighs down the charge port, which disconnects it. So if you walk away and you think your car is charging, you need to double check, because honestly, it may not be charging at all. So it's definitely a good idea to keep an eye on that. One tip that I found that works with Electrify America charging stations is that when you plug your vehicle in, hold the charger up, almost like you're shaking hands with your vehicle, and it will release some of that weight from the cord and allow your car to initiate charging. One con of the Bolt EV when it comes to DC fast charging is just how slow the Bolt charges at these stations. When I first got the vehicle last fall, it was able to charge at about 50 kilowatts. And now it's still able to do that. However, GM did software restrictions where it was almost like a step tier where it would hit a certain percentage of state of charge, then drop kilowatts, hit another percentage, then drop. And then by the time it got to about 80%, which took about 60 minutes, it was just charging super slow. And I'm talking about like maybe 15 to 20 kilowatts. And at a fast charger, that's incredibly slow. Fortunately, GM listened to Chevy owners and they released a software update called the DC Robustness software update, which allowed this vehicle to charge at a more seamless rate of charge to a higher percentage of state of charge. So that allowed this vehicle to charge more seamlessly at these chargers. However, I'm still seeing about 50 to 57 kilowatts of max charging speed. And with today's technology, with new vehicles coming out, this is slow in comparison to a lot of the competitors. I know Chevy is going to be coming out with new vehicles soon, and I know that they're going to be charging at a lot higher rates. But for this, I'm sitting at chargers for about 30 minutes to an hour sometimes, trying to get a state of charge of 80% just to get on the road. So that it seems like a small con, but honestly, when you're sitting at a charging station for that long, a lot of things can happen. Overall though, charging has been really easy. There's been some really great experience with Electrify America, EVgo, ChargePoint, and just a bunch of other public charging stations like this one here in Twinsburg, Ohio. So it's been pretty seamless with finding charging stations. The one thing that I will say is a con is that the Bolt doesn't have a routing system where you put an address in the GPS or navigation. In fact, it doesn't have that at all, and it does not find charging stations for you. This is one thing that I genuinely wish that it had, because it would make things a lot easier for the driver. Now let's talk about driving characteristics and aspects of the Bolt EV that I love when it comes to driving. So the vehicle has a 201 horsepower electric motor sitting right on the front wheel, so it's a front wheel drive vehicle. And with electric vehicles, they always have a large amount of torque. And this vehicle is no different. The one thing that I absolutely love to do when it comes to stoplights is put the vehicle in sport mode and chirp the tires and then take off. It's a blast. I love getting on on-ramps, and it's just honestly easy to get around vehicles, and there's no loss of power, even at highway speeds. So it's great to go in the parks, to drive around different cities, and with the size, it's easy to park too. So that's one thing that I absolutely love about the Bolt. So as I mentioned in my 10,000 mile ownership review, the Bolt and the safety of the vehicle and the way it's designed is that the battery pack currently sits underneath the vehicle, almost like a skateboard design. And because the battery packs are so heavy, it really plants the vehicle to the ground. So that helps with steering, safety, traction, and driving in wet and snowy weather. So a lot of my experience with the driving aspects have been a big pro. So I absolutely love how this car handles. In fact, my goal is next year to get into more autocross events to test this vehicle in autocross courses. In fact, I actually did this previous summer and I fell in love with it. So I love the way that this car drives. It's peppy, it's fun. Definitely, if you haven't yet, definitely get a chance to go test drive one. Okay, so that's gonna be it for the exterior pros and cons of the Bolt. And honestly, there's not a lot of cons. However, once we get into the car, this is where you'll find my list of cons. So overall, the interior has not honestly changed much since my 10,000 mile review. I have not really been driving this vehicle because I have been working from home, but like I mentioned, I have put about 6,000 more miles on the vehicle. And over the past year, I've had a lot more experience when it comes to long distance driving. And now I will say, with this being the LT trim, these seats are relatively comfortable. However, they definitely have their max sitting limit. So their max sitting limit is, I would say, roughly about 5 to 6 hours. Over the summer, we took a trip down to NCM, which is like the Corvette Motorsports Parkway down in Bowling Green, Kentucky, which is right by the Corvette factory and museum. And that's about a 10-hour plus drive with charging including. So we did it all in one day, and towards the middle of it, that's when my back and my butt started really hurting. So these seats definitely have their limits, but for everyday driving, they're extremely comfortable. My commute was about 1 hour one way, and I had no issue. The nice thing about the interior, as I mentioned, you can get a heated steering wheel optional, as well as heated front seats, which makes this great for winter driving. So while we're on the topic of seats, this is something that I wanted to bring up because this has been an issue specifically for the driver's seat ever since I bought the vehicle. A few months ago, I took it in to have the seat track replaced, which I talked about in my 10,000 mile review video. And then a few months later, the seat was still cracking and making these weird creaking sounds. So I took it in and they had to replace the entire seat frame. And they had to order the parts, which took weeks to get here. And just before I dive into that, that's just another con too, is that parts are few and far between for this car. And it's taken my particular dealership weeks to get certain parts. But to get back to the seat, is that they had to replace the entire seat frame, everything. And now the seat is actually still making creaking sounds and cracking sounds. I'm 6'1", about 220 pounds, so I'm kind of an average guy, and I just don't really understand why the seats are doing this. But the biggest issue is that I notice whenever I'm braking hard, this portion will actually move forward. So it's hard to describe on video, but the seat is like literally moving forward. And it makes me uneasy knowing that this could break at any moment. So it looks like it's going to be brought back to the dealership. Fortunately, we have a 3-year bumper to bumper warranty that covers issues like this, but it's just kind of disappointing that I've had to bring this car in so many times just for the seat. So another thing that I want to talk about, and this is something that I mentioned in my previous videos, is the displays. The main center digital cluster, which gives you information on your driving and everything, has been great. This touchscreen, it's been hit or miss. And the reason I'm saying this is that actually at this charging location, the screen totally went black and it would not turn on no matter what I did. Fun fact, if you guys are running into issues with your touchscreen, just hold the fast forward button and the home button at the same time for about, I think, 10 seconds, and it restarts the entire system. I know that you can do that while driving, so if that ever happens to you. But the system has not gotten faster. It's still slow. It still lags a little bit, depending on what you're loading. And it's just, yeah, it's just it. So I'm really hoping that Chevy updates this, but that is a con. Fortunately, I have Apple CarPlay, so I mainly just use Apple CarPlay. I don't really have to worry about this. But with my other video, I did mention that sometimes the projection button does not work when it comes to connecting a phone into the USB. But it's actually been working relatively well with the newer iPhones. For some reason with my 11 Pro Max, it just was giving me an issue. But with my 12, it's been working really well. Other than that, I don't really dive into any of these features. I will say the one thing that I do like is that you can change the colors of the backgrounds by going into displays or the settings and find display settings. And you can change the colors to 3 different ones. And that's just one thing that I really like about it, is that you can kind of customize it. Wish you could customize it more, but that's okay. That's why I use Apple CarPlay. But everything else with the screens have been working really well. Like I mentioned, I've had no issues. The only downside with the dashboard design is that it's gloss black or piano black, and it just collects dust and it just kind of gets dirty. As far as the other interior pieces, like I mentioned in the other video, there was a few parts that weren't really holding well. Like this is kind of coming up. There's a part in the other side that's coming up. The steering wheel is holding up pretty well. So this one, with it being with the heated steering wheel, I do have a leather wrapped steering wheel. I don't know if I just have greasy hands, but they are starting to kind of wear down where I hold my thumbs. Just the plastic is starting to get shiny and glossy, so we tend to kind of clean this to get the grease off. But other than that, the buttons are holding up really well. Definitely things click, everything works, like the windshield wipers. Horn still works, but it's just the steering wheel. It's going to be sad to see if this holds up over time, which I think it will, but it's just kind of getting shiny right there. So one other thing that I want to talk about the Bolt EV is just some of the limits of technology that Chevy has within this product. And now the biggest one is over-the-air software updates. The Bolt does not have that. It does and it doesn't. So the Bolt has the capability to do over-the-air software updates. However, Chevy has not pushed a single software update to this vehicle in my 13 months of ownership. So even with some of the software updates and in fact making everything just better for the driver, it hasn't even happened yet. And honestly, I really hope with the future products that GM is coming out with, they push software updates regularly to these vehicles, because it would be nice to wake up and have something different and just honestly a better software experience. So now this last con for the interior is something that I actually regret getting the LT, is that it has this like cloth, like fabric, which is more sustainable than some of the alternatives like fake leather or vegan leather that you can find in like the Premier trims. However, please don't judge me, because I don't keep the car looking like this, and I'm fortunate to have a husband that's interested in car detailing. We have 2 dogs, and both dogs tend to get muddy. And the Bolt has become what we call the dog car. And now this is exactly what I'm talking about. So the downside with the Bolt's fabric seats is just how easily they stain. You can see all along here, this is where our dogs get in the car, and you can see all around the middle portion where the dogs lay and drool and just get stains everywhere. The one thing though is that the stains do lift up with normal laundry detergent, so it's easy to remove. However, with them being a lighter color, they get stained incredibly easy. I've spilled coffee, which was just impossible to get out. Unfortunately, it took about 5 times to get it out. But this is really what it looks like with everyday use and having dogs in here. It just gets really, really dirty. So it's constant upkeep. And if you don't have dogs, that's good. But if you have kids, it could look like this too. So just keep in mind that this fabric, it stains really easily. Now, before we end today's video, there was one thing that I want to touch base with all current Bolt owners and future Bolt EV owners and enthusiasts. So there is currently open recalls for the Bolt EV. And now they're only specific years, mainly they're focusing on 2017 through 2019. There is a recall for 2017 through 2019 Bolt EVs that deal with battery fires. GM is recommending you only charge your car to a total of 90% state of charge, or bring it in for a software update that will lock your battery at that current rate. So just definitely keep in mind that there's that open recall. Fortunately, mine does not fall in line with that. I have a different battery pack apparently that was made here in America versus in Korea. By LG Chem. So I don't fall within that recall, but I just wanted to let you guys know so you're aware. However, the one recall that I do have open on my Bolt EV deals with a fuse relay that could cause the car to shut off at any given moment with no warning. And this recall has been open for months. I brought my car in, it was August, to get the headlights replaced, and I mentioned the fuse relay recall, and my service advisor told me that they would work to get the parts in. Well, that was back in August. It's now the middle of November. I've not heard anything from the dealership, and I have no clue when this recall is going to be fulfilled. So yeah, does it make me a little nervous knowing that this car could shut off at any moment until I get that fixed? Just a little bit, but it's been really reliable since, so I'm not too concerned. But it would just be really nice if the dealership service network was just a little bit more streamlined, and that the parts were readily available, just so we can get these cars fixed faster. So I just wanted to let you guys know that that's going to be the final con of today's video. So now you may be wondering if I would recommend the Bolt EV as an everyday electric vehicle. And the truth is, yes. However, I would recommend leasing this vehicle instead of financing it like I did. And the reason is that technology is going to be changing over the next few years. There's going to be a lot of great other electric vehicles coming from multiple different brands. Definitely the price point is going to be coming down, and Chevy is coming out with a new Bolt EV in the next few years, including an SUV version. So definitely keep an eye out on that. But if you guys can find one from 2017 through 2020, highly recommend this as an everyday driver. Great for commutes, great for long distance trips as long as you're planned, and honestly, it's just a fun car. So I definitely recommend this as an everyday electric vehicle. Well, everyone, that's going to be it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I definitely hope that you guys enjoyed learning about my personal experience owning this 2019 Bolt EV for the past year. It's been great. It's been bad. It's kind of been a relatively basic experience. But I'm excited for other electric vehicles to come out because there's a lot of great offerings coming, and this car is going to hold me until then, and I'm driving electric, and that's all that matters. So if you guys haven't yet and you're new to my channel, definitely consider subscribing. Appreciate every single support, trying to hit 1,000 subscribers. And if you are subscribed, thank you guys for the support. Make sure you like and share this video with your friends, and definitely keep an eye out for more content. Excited to be producing more stuff for you guys. So hope you guys are taking well, staying safe, and I hope you guys make every single day electrifying. See you guys.